Have you ever wondered what really happened between two of rock's biggest legends? Sammy Hagar and Eddie Van Halen formed one of the most iconic duos in rock history, but their relationship was often tumultuous. With many questions, the public still wonders why these historical bands are always meant to break. Why can't they remain united for the rest of their life, enduring their differences just for their die-hard fans? Well, like every friendship that is meant to end, these music bands have always created a history of parting their ways when they reach their heights. So, let's start today's video, in which Sammy Hagar reveals the shocking truth about Eddie Van Halen after his death. Before I reveal the shocking truth, you need to know about Eddie Van Halen, who was the remarkable guitarist and co-founder of the outstanding rock band Van Halen, and left a permanent influence on the music world. Furthermore, he will always be remembered for his groundbreaking guitar techniques, particularly his signature two-handed tapping, which created a sensational impact on the way the guitar was played, inspiring countless musicians across generations. His unique way was copied by millions of youngsters and guitarists throughout the world. In 1955, this great musician was born in Amsterdam, Netherlands, and was raised in California. Time flew by, and he started to dream of being a musician. From a young age, he often represented an extraordinary talent for musical instruments, mainly guitar. Moreover, his father, who was a jazz saxophonist, played an essential role in his life by introducing him to the world of instruments. Hence, Eddie quickly developed a thirst for the guitar. Furthermore, in his teen years, Eddie and his brother, Alex, formed a band called Van Halen. With Eddie's electrifying guitar solos and Alex's powerful drumming, the band quickly gained popularity among the youth. Soon, they released their self-titled debut album in 1978, which was a significant commercial success that introduced them to stardom. Apart from this, Van Halen's music was known for its high-energy sound, catchy melodies, and Eddie's innovative guitar playing. Their songs, like Jump, Panama, and Runnin' with the Devil, became anthems of the 1980s, and every boy in the street could be heard humming about this song. Despite his musical intelligence, like every other self-made artist, Eddie's life was not without its challenges. He had to struggle with addiction, which heavily impacted his personal and professional life, straining his relationships with his bandmates. Hence, he had to face numerous personal holdups. Also, his bad habit of smoking and addiction worsened his relationships with his bandmates, who, at many spots, told him to repent because they saw this monster taking over their lovely friend. But Eddie never listened to them, and the day finally arrived when the bond between him and Michael Anthony, two founding members of the band, started to get bitter. They both had a friendship stronger than steel, hence turning their bond into a long-lasting memory. They went on to create a history in the musical world. However, over time, the once inseparable duo found themselves at odds, and their friendship straightened out in a bitter dispute that left everlasting wounds that never healed. Talking about Michael Anthony, who joined Van Halen in 1974, swiftly became an essential part of the band's sound. His exceptional bass playing and soulful backup vocals provided a vital foundation for the group's hit songs. Moreover, in the early days, Van Halen worked to be a strongly united unit that shared songwriting credits and royalties, equally so that in the future, no one could feel their rights getting suppressed. With the speed of light, the band's success hit the roof in the late 1970s and early 1980s. Therefore, a sore feeling took over Eddie Van Halen that his contributions were not being indeed recognized. Despite making the situation worse, Eddie, along with lead singer David Lee Roth, began to believe that their role in shaping Van Halen's signature sound deserved more significant compensation. In other words, they both wanted a more substantial share in royalties and credits. This sentiment gradually grew into hatred, especially towards Michael Anthony, whom he felt was not contributing enough to the innovative process to justify an equal share of the band's profits. Eddie started to raise this point in their chats and workouts, which sparked his conflict with Michael, which later reached a boiling point in 1984 when Van Halen was at its peak of popularity. Eddie, along with his brother, drummer Alex Van Halen, began pressuring Michael to give up his stake in the band's royalties and songwriting credits. Under this immense pressure, Michael hesitantly agreed, which effectively reduced his status within the band from that of a full partner to that of a salaried employee. Greed took over the band members. Hence, Michael felt that he was being deprived of millions of dollars in potential earnings. It was a fact that Michael had played a significant role in playing his part in the band's hits. As I stated earlier, every friendship will reach an end, and the gap between Eddie and Michael only deepened with time. Michael's reduced role within the band led to growing tensions, particularly when Eddie exerted more control over the band's direction. He wanted to move the band on his command, as if they were puppets. Their relationship deteriorated further when the band reunited with Sammy Hagar in 2004. Therefore, Michael Anthony felt humiliated while performing under this condition. Furthermore, Eddie went on to take a significant pay cut and all future claims to the Van Halen name and logo. Despite all this shame, Michael agreed to the terms, but the damage to his relationship with Eddie was permanent. In addition, the situation worsened in 2006 when Van Halen announced a reunion tour, this time with David Lee Roth as the lead singer. Surprisingly, Michael Anthony was notably absent from the lineup. Well, he had been shockingly replaced by Eddie's son, Wolfgang Van Halen, on bass. The growing influence of nepotism was visible in the group. Henceforth, this move was widely seen to be Eddie's final insult towards Michael, eventually cutting him out of the band that he had once helped to build. Things didn't stop there. Michael Anthony went on to speak publicly about the hurt and disappointment he felt over his treatment by Eddie Van Halen. He described how difficult it was to be pushed out of the band and how much he missed being part of Van Halen. Despite the bitterness, Michael has often taken the high road in interviews, expressing gratitude for the years he spent with the band and the fans' support. In later years, Michael tried his luck in other projects and found success in joining the supergroup Chickenfoot, which included Sammy Hagar, guitarist Joe Satriani, and drummer Chad Smith. Eddie Van Halen, on the other hand, rarely spoke in detail about his issues with Michael Anthony. However, in a few instances, Eddie gave a lower profile to Michael's contributions to the band, stating that he had often played the bass parts on Van Halen's albums himself and that Michael was primarily a backup vocalist. Eddie played a wicked game with Michael, who blindly trusted him and always thanked him for giving him an essential part in Van Halen's. Apart from Michael Anthony, more bandmates suffered the misconduct of Eddie Van Halen. This time, it was Sammy Hagar. The relationship between Eddie Van Halen and Sammy Hagar, two legendary figures in the world of rock music, will always be remembered by both their victories and chaos. Well, their collaboration, which began in 1985 following the departure of original frontman David Lee Roth, blew a new life into Van Halen. However, beneath the surface of their musical success, a storm was boiling. Sammy Hagar, who was an established rock artist, brought a fresh energy to Van Halen. His powerful voice and dynamic stage presence perfectly matched Eddie's unmatched guitar playing, resulting in a string of hits and multi-platinum albums. The band, which was once known as Van Halen, was given a new name, Van Hagar, in respect because Sammy brought commercial success, but this success was troubled with tension and conflict. Soon, creative differences began to take a toll between Eddie and Sammy. Eddie was known for his subtle perfectionism and innovation in playing guitar. On the other hand, Sammy preferred a more straightforward rock sound. Hence, the theories of both artists clashed, which resulted in a stressful environment in the group. Moreover, personal issues also played a significant role in the decline of their relationship. In one of the interviews, Sammy Hagar revealed the shocking truth about Eddie Van Halen. He said that Eddie's struggles with substance abuse had a negative impact on his behavior and decision-making, creating a significant strain within the band, mainly in his relationship with Sammy. Apart from making things better, it got bitter to such an extent that the tension between Eddie and Sammy reached a breaking point in 1996, leading to Sammy's departure from the band. This pain and disappointment was evident in his later interviews, where he described the experience to be one of the most challenging times of his life. Despite their differences, Eddie Van Halen and Sammy Hagar eventually reunited in 2004 for a Van Halen tour. However, the old tensions had not disappeared. This reunion sparked the rumors that Sammy would rejoin Van Halen, but he negated it. Eddie's personal struggles were still quite visible, and his onstage behavior during the tour was uneven, which caused both the fans and his bandmates to be concerned about him. In his memoir, Sammy Hagar further narrated how he was shocked to see Eddie's physical appearance and deteriorating health at the time. It was a heartbreaking moment for him. Luckily, the 2004 reunion tour was commercially successful. Nonetheless, it only intensified the tensions between Hagar and Eddie. By the end of the tour, their relationship was again ruined due to Eddie's inhumane behavior, and Sammy Hagar left the band for the second time. The soreness of their fallout was evident in Hagar's interviews and public statements that followed, with both men expressing deep frustrations and disappointments. Besides, in one of the conversations, Sammy Hagar exposed some of the shocking details about Van Halen's 2004 reunion tour, describing it to be the most disturbing experience of his life, where he almost had to fight for his life. He gave all the credit for this chaos to Eddie Van Halen, whose battle with addiction had severely affected Hagar's behavior. Furthermore, he recalled Eddie's destructive behavior during the tour, which included an incident where he attempted to break the windows of a G5 airplane with a wine bottle while they were at 4,000 feet. How can a person be so lunatic and put not only his but other people's lives in danger too? Despite the challenges and hardships, Sammy Hagar has expressed the humble and polite side of the late guitarist. He acknowledged Eddie's incredible talent and kindness, but he also talked about the demons that overwhelmed him. Likewise, Hagar stressed that Eddie was not the only person he had known with such struggles. However, seeing those demons take over him was heartbreaking. Meanwhile, while working with Eddie Van Halen, Sammy Hagar contributed to 4 albums and co-wrote several hit songs. Hagar also said that he had succeeded in collaborative environments and that he is always able to produce better work with others. In addition, his collaborations with Eddie Van Halen and Joe Satriani were, above all, fruitful, resulting in superior outcomes to what he could achieve alone. Moreover, while Sammy Hagar prepared for his Best of All Worlds tour, the 2004 reunion trip remained a significant yet painful chapter in his career. The bandmates were really disappointed with this rash behavior of the leading Eddie Van Halen. Hence, within no time, Van Halen was not only renowned for their electrifying performances, but people had also acknowledged the wild and chaotic quarrels that often unfolded behind the scenes. Besides, touring with Van Halen usually proved to be a recipe for trouble, especially when the crew was paired with other relaxed and easygoing bands. As we fold the pages from the band's history, one of the most infamous incidents occurred in 1984 during Van Halen's tour, when they were joined by Motley Crue, a band that was already ill-famed for their outrageous behavior. Well, during this tour, Mötley Crüe was suffering from a so-called crazy biting phase, where the band members were known to engage in reckless and, to some extent, dangerous acts. The story goes on when, during one of the wild nights, Mötley Crüe's lead singer, Vince Neil, bit Eddie Van Halen's hand. This incident was no small matter for Eddie, because his hands were his livelihood, and this injury not only enraged him, but also risked the upcoming shows. What would have happened if his hand had been dangerously injured, and the poison from that bite had been spread over his hand? That was the source of dispersing magic. It was a really childish act, but Eddie found it to be an act that could have endangered his livelihood. Understandably, Eddie was furious, and tensions between the two bands escalated swiftly. The situation became so heated that Van Halen's management demanded that Mötley Crüe be removed from the tour. However, due to Mötley Crüe's rising popularity, their removal was not affordable. Meanwhile, to keep the peace and prevent further incidents, a unique solution was devised. Mötley Crüe's trailer was given a place several meters off the ground by a towering crane during the rehearsals. This effective confining of the other band members to their elevated trailer before performances decreased their opportunities to cause more trouble. What is more, Van Halen's tour conflicts weren't limited to Mötley Crüe. Another memorable incident involved the progressive rock band Rush. When the two bands crossed their paths in Leicester, England, Van Halen unknowingly crashed Rush's private party. It seemed to be an accident, but the behavior of the band Rush was beyond exceptional. The incident was initiated when Rush rented out a hotel bar to celebrate their bassist Geddy Lee's birthday and prepaid for all the alcohol. However, when Van Halen arrived at the same spot, they assumed the drinks were free and began helping themselves with it. Rather than causing a scene, Rush graciously shared their stack, turning the night into an impromptu party. However, the festive mood turned upside down, and again behind this was Eddie Van Halen, who accidentally spilled beer on Geddy Lee's sound system, damaging it beyond repair. Although the incident created some tension between the two bands, they still managed to avoid a significant fallout, with Lee later downplaying any long-lasting resentment. Well, these stories are just a few examples of the tensions that surrounded Van Halen during their tours. Despite this, the band was notorious for pushing boundaries both on and off the stage, whether it was dealing with the tricks of their tourmates or navigating their own internal conflicts. Van Halen's tours were just unpredictable and wild, like their music. Perhaps because of these rowdy experiences, the band kept on hypnotizing audiences around the world, leaving behind stories of legendary performances and infamous tour tales that are remembered till this era. On the other hand, Eddie Van Halen, the legendary guitarist of Van Halen, was not only known for his groundbreaking skills on the guitar, but also for his personal battles, especially with addiction. For years, Eddie's substance abuse was a constant presence endangering the unity of the band. But still, Van Halen achieved massive success. Moreover, keen fans who attended their concerts during the 1980s and 1990s would sometimes see Eddie performing while visibly under the influence, which gave rise to concerns about his well-being. Nevertheless, this battle with addiction was something Eddie himself was very aware of, and it was a struggle he fought for most of his life. Meanwhile, the turning point in Eddie Van Halen's life came when his son, Wolfgang Van Halen, stepped in. Wolfgang, who had joined Van Halen to be the band's bassist in 2006, played a crucial role in helping his father recognize the need for change. It was Wolfgang's love and care for his father that ultimately inspired Eddie to seek help and mend his ways. But still, after so many services he rendered to the band, people called him a Nepo kid. In addition, during interviews, Eddie often credited Wolfgang for saving his life. He would further speak about how Wolfgang's support and encouragement gave him the strength to face his demons and finally take control of his addiction. This moment upturned Eddie's life, and the impact was clearly seen in the band's performances. In 2008, after years of struggling, Eddie Van Halen made a final decision to get himself admitted to rehab. This decision wasn't easy for him, but it was vital for him to reclaim his life and health. Eddie's time in rehab was a period of redemption and recovery. He struggled hard to overcome his addiction, and with the help of professionals and the firm support of his son, he was finally able to achieve moderation in his personality. After completing rehab, Eddie emerged to be an entirely different man. He was improved, more focused, and determined to flourish his life healthily. For the first time in decades, Eddie's fans witnessed him living clean and sober, and it was shown in both his personal life and his music. Despite his many achievements, Eddie stayed humble about his success. Like his die-hard fans, we will still celebrate Eddie's music, his influence, and his fixed everlasting mark on the music world. Whether they were countless guitarists inspired by his new techniques, the all-time famous songs he created, or even the innovations he introduced to music, Eddie Van Halen's story will always stay in the hearts of music lovers. What are your thoughts on this story? Let us know in the comments section below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.